Here we are, back at Aloha. It's January 8th, 19. Well, that's a bad sign. 19. Oh my God. 2017. Dolce Vita's right here. I don't know if you can see her. There she is. Yay team. It's a group effort. Wino. Dear friend of mine gave me this. It doesn't get better than that. Anywho, I am not going to talk about the R word, which I can't even remember, the thing that people do at the beginning of the year, because it's self-punishment. What is that called? Resignations? I can't even think of the word right now. Resolutions, New Year's resolutions. Yeah, they fail because it's about self-punishment and ego. Never works. It's like, I call it resolution regurgitation, right? Because how many times have you made promises to yourself that, aren't going to work? Because if it's self-punishment and if God's not involved, it never works. So, okay, let's just, I didn't pray last week until the middle, and I didn't like that so much. So, let's do it. Let's just check in. I need to take the gear off for this. For some reason today, I need to have gear off. Gear off. Go ahead and give yourself a little traction up and down, just creating a little space between the facets, which are the little joints in your spine. Nothing harsh, nothing rigid, just a little And say hello to your breath. The ever-present reminder of this death and this life and everything in between, the pause. And see if you can extend the pause, the and. It's at the bottom or the beginning. And let the air around you meet your skin and penetrate into your very core. Breathe your whole body, soothing yourself, cleansing your inner organs, your cells. And when you're ready, go ahead and salute yourself, each other, in the cyber world, teachers seen and unseen, and wish us a nice check-in this morning for Sunday salutations. I don't know which one to wear, wino or NRA. You know how I feel about this one. And they're both groovy, right? My dad, a Buddhist, was an NRA member. I'm a mystic who's a wino. Keep it going. Well, maybe we'll just keep both of them on for a minute until I get motivated. So let's pick up from last week, because I had another wonderful reply come in from last week. As you recall, it is connected with this whole New Year's. I'm going to do something different trip that people torture themselves with. Starbucks. I left you on the idea of greed, right? Like, where were you greedy this week? It's easy to see where we're greedy with, our belief systems, our habits, our predilections, our desires and all that stuff. But where are we greedy with our judgments, our thought processes? Where are we attached to outcomes? Where are we feeling resentful that something didn't occur in a way that we preferred it to occur? These are places of greed. And this lovely student wrote, I just skipped through it. She got flared up in a lovely way, which I love. And I'll read my reply real quick. What can we do? We meaning I, but we as in also collectively taught, are taught to be self-effacing, give everything away, no questions asked, albeit outgo the boundaries, be humble in the name of not being greedy. Basically, what do we do when we have been taught dysfunctionally by being bullied not to be greedy? How do we recalibrate the less of me, more than you mantra, which is the prayer that I left you with? Very deep prayer. She called it a mantra, to something that is life-affirming and empowering instead of the greedy martyr popping in for some self-flagellation. Nothing gets my head up my tuchus faster than that. Yeah, we got it. In the undoing of this sneaky pattern, period. Resentment is a byproduct of this dysfunctional bullying pattern, clearly. How does resentment encompass greed and vice versa? How do we catch that, transmute it, and what spiritually is the inverse of this particular kind of greed? Thank you. And then she asks for some reading material. So, lovely, just lovely, vulnerable, direct. I say to her, Buenos dias, her name, RZ here. I will address some of this in the Mercy class. I'm teaching a Mercy class next Saturday, virtual and live. If you want to take it, you can register. I'll tell you at the end. Next Saturday is 3 hours. And for now, here's your homework to her. The training you are referring to is on the secular level, on part of political correctness. Prior to this, it was social niceties or moral conduct. What I and the masters I stand on the shoulders of are talking to is many layers down. So the assumption is one has meditated and prayed past appearances to the deeper wiring of the psyche that is affecting the soul's development. In other words, erase all the questions and make a simple prayer of show me where I am unconsciously greedy. That is I just taught a Reverend class on prayer, and that is a reflective prayer. Show me where I am unconsciously greedy. What I am talking about is not the moral judgment of greed, where you are stuck, not a problem, very common, I'm speaking to her, but the darker grotto of greed, also known as attachment, possession, and yes, resentment. Greed is anywhere we have an attachment at any level. Outcomes, disappointments, resentments, they all come from desire. Hello, number one noble truth, life is suffering. What causes suffering? Desire. Is desire bad? No, it's the vehicle to wake the fuck up. So get off your high horse on that one. This is a meditation on daily life to be relished and challenged. And glory be when and where you are shown where you are greedy. That is this practice. Then I say to her in bold, don't ask what then. That in itself is greed. Ha ha ha. Let the magic happen. Also read the Four Noble Truths, Master Bootster's whole teaching on what I'm discussing. More later, nothing to correct, nothing is fucked. Enjoy the ride till next Sunday today. And I wrote, P.S. Yes, the prayer, less of me and more of you is very big. And I invite her, as I invite you, just let it sit in the background. Don't worry about that right now. So how does this connect with the thing, the word I will not say, the R word? Giving up something because it's good for you is not enough. Like that's very superficial. You've got to see, or not. I have a sort of a myriad of topics I'm talking about. I'm talking about greed. I'm talking about why resolutions are ineffective for the most part, and discipline. I'm sort of talking about them all. Again, my idea is to just keep this ongoing conversation, so I may get to all of those, or probably not, since I'm trying to keep it in 15, 20 minutes. But just know that these are all floating around. There has to be So the invitation was about greed. The impetus for it was, as I've always sort of mentioning on and off, is, do you have a deep desire for freedom? So that's sort of the tagline on all the classes I teach, and the sort of foundation of all mystical truths is, do you want freedom? So there's secular freedom, like, First Amendment, Second Amendment, all that jazz. And then there's spiritual freedom, right? And since suffering is the first noble truth, which is caused by desire, but yet you can't get away from desire, what are we to do? Well, that's where the bhakti comes in and says, well, if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to drink wines or shoot guns or get laid or do yoga every day or whatever your trip is that you feel like you have to do, well, then bring God into the picture and don't surrender it. That's a different kind of thing. But worship God. In other words, bring God into the gun range, bring God to the bar or to the table with dinner, or bring God to the yoga mat. Like wherever you feel like you have to do something, have to is the key word there. It doesn't have to become a problem if you bring God into it, because ironically, or not so ironically, if you bring God into whatever it is you're starting to feel shitty about, because God, the secular world has judgments around what you should and shouldn't do, but then the reality is we do certain things. If you bring God into it consciously, like if Dolce is here, that's how literal I mean it. Like God is a real energy, and that's what I'm trying to really inspire you guys for. It can be the Advaita, the impersonal, or it can be the personal, which is the Ishta, which is if, like, well, I'm always with God, but it's like I'm speaking to God, But anyway, personal Ishta comes in and say, hey, want a glass of wine? Like, serious. You want to go shoot on the range? You want to go do yoga? You want to get laid? Hey, you want to masturbate, dude? Like, you bring him into that space, and then what happens? And I'm going to share from one of my heroes, from Ramakrishna's disciples here. The thing, whatever the activity is, or the habit, or the belief, or whatever it is which you're inviting God to, starts tempering itself. And over time, the relationship changes. You could even be that you dry hump your kid. Yes. So, wherever we're attached is blocking our freedom. Meaning our freedom, our spiritual freedom to have direct access without needing a conduit, right? That the idea is with bringing bhakti into it, which just means devotional yoga, not just, but it means devotional yoga, like a personal devotional yoga. It's not impersonal. Is that you take the thing you love, because you can't just love God directly, but you say your kid, your cat, your wine, your gun, your yoga mat, your job, your righteous indignation politically, whatever it is that you're more into, you then use it as a segue to God, right? It's just human. It's like, let's be honest, right? Like, I can't go direct. Okay, no problem, Bhakti says. So over time, then that relationship's tempered because you're consciously doing it. You're consciously bringing God to those things. It's not surrender like this. It's come to me. I want you to do this with me. Different. Because you're doing that, because God sees your thinking, you're at least bringing that energy, we're calling God, into it. The thing, the medium slowly starts changing. So all of a sudden you're not so focused on your child, you're not so focused on the gun, you're not so on the wine, on the yoga mat, on the sex, on the porn, on the volunteering 5 days a week. Maybe all of a sudden those things get tempered. And so therefore you show up to those things with more discipline, more, we say discernment, more refinement. You're not going there as the only thing to go to. It's quite lovely. It's quite lovely, which is a better way to come at this stuff. You bring God into anything, man, shit gets a lot easier and more fluid and graceful versus this rigid, I'm going to stop doing that because it's bad for me. And then you turn into one of those pricks, Then that like that lady, that young woman, Mrs. Intervention, at Christmas, remember? There's enough of that, right? Like all of a sudden you're not doing something, or you are doing something and then everyone else should be doing it. Damn it. You know, not cool. You know, we've all been there, hopefully younger days. Starbucks. So bringing God into these things, whatever your trip is, brings you more aware of what it is you're doing. And then it becomes fun to renegotiate the relationship with those things. It doesn't feel like torture. It doesn't feel like you're doing something. There is in certain Christian mysticism, certain ideas, there's this idea of sacrifice, which I'm going to talk about probably in a real class. I think it deserves a real class. Discipline and sacrifice. It becomes a really heart opening, right? Because it's creating space for you're willingly saying, God, I'm going to give this to you. I'm not going to participate with you for a while. Hold it for me. It creates all this other space to do other things, and it doesn't have to be harsh, you know. Like, you know, I do put wine down. Like, it's fun. Like right now, I have wines hanging out by the pool for a couple weeks, you know, chilling out. Hi, Winey Winerton. Hi, Winey Winerton. Yeah, I'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest, because it's an energy system. It's like everyone needs a break. That's got consciousness, as the gun has consciousness, as the yoga mat has consciousness. Like, it's good to put the yoga mat away, right? Imagine that, but it's so good for you. So, well, you know, what I'm trying to get you to see is it doesn't matter. We're so into this is right or this is wrong or this is better for you, not better for you. It's so personal. And what I'm trying to get you to do is take it to the impersonal. It's like, wait a minute. I know that experience. I know what that is. But hey, you know what? It's like, take a break from the marriage, or take a break from the dude, or take a break from the chick, or the substance, or the behavior, or the belief system. Like, I need to be like on the internet, on the blog, you know, trying to get, you know, who so and so like defeated, you know, because I'm right, or I need to go to the food shelter every day because otherwise I'm going to lose my shit because I have to be alone. The whole idea is like to take the things we love. This is what I'm talking about today, and to offer them up consciously as a breath, as a spaciousness, as like, and let me do other things, knowing that that's there. Now, again, if you're like laying in the street with needles in your arm, it may be a different kind of experience. You know, you may have to like do something else before you can do what I'm talking about, right? I mean, and there was an opportunity before you were laying in the street. And that's the thing with all these things, no matter what it is, where there was a little voice that said, hey, why don't you go, you know, ride a bike for an hour, you know, or something. I know I'm getting into some really big areas, but anyway, I'm trying to get you just to reflect on this idea of gifting the things that maybe we're greedy with to God, to create space for more freedom to explore your relationship with God in other ways. Big statement. Don't worry about getting all of it. So, I love my hats over here. Woman of many hats. The idea is we live in a world of temptations, objects that create desires. And all the masters know that it's through our desires that we come back to truth, that we come back to home, which I find amazing. Like, it's just paying attention and using discipline, which is a word that flips everyone's lid, that's why I'm using it, to cultivate that understanding. Like, nothing's fucked, man. So here, I'm going to read this. Girish Ghosh, of course, not surprising, is one of the very special disciples of Ramakrishna, which is the lineage that I initiated into and taught from since I was very young. And which is Vedanta, which is considered the oldest knowledge. That's what it means. All-inclusive knowledge, oldest knowledge. Girish he probably was a Taurus, I don't know. Just like a fantastic actor. He was like this supreme Indian actor in Calcutta at the time, 1800s. brilliant playwright, brilliant actor, brilliant director, drank like a fish, went to brothels, hyper intelligent, was passionate about discussing philosophy. And at the time, there was this group called the Brahmo Samaj, which was sort of like everything, like I said to you a while back, it's like every religion becomes debauched and infested with, human ego and mental, and then the truth gets, dissipated. Then a Buddha shows up, or a Christ shows up, or Ramakrishna shows up. Anywho, I get ahead of myself. So the Brahmo Samaj was this intellectual group of people that were really getting bloated with the Advaita Vedanta. And anyway, he would go and talk, and he had a desire for God. And what was great is some of the biggest debauched, indulgent people are some of the most passionate about God or desiring, and they don't even maybe know about it, Anyway, he's one of them. Long story short is Ramakrishna came to one of his performances, and anyway, I won't go through the whole story. Girish is just truthful. He's told himself he would be completely drunk and abusive towards RK, but RK could see into his heart that this man was truthful, honest, and passionate. And though those passions may be going to some of those things, it didn't matter to RK. He's that's part of his process. That was part of his journey. That's the bigness of heart that I'm inviting all of you to, get past what you think is right or wrong, right? Which means deal with your own shit. Always, right? So I just want to read this. This is just pertinent for today. This is after, and he would show up in the temple completely drunk and then pass out and then not have a bottle. And then RK would say, go get this guy a bottle. And all the disciples, the usual scenario in ashrams. It's you're going to indulge him? He's shut the fuck up. You don't see what I see. This guy's more of a saint than you are. Go get him a bottle. Go get him a bottle and bring him back. Anyway, he knew over time that because of this offering business I was talking about, no matter what the activity is, if you bring God into it, it'll help temper. Get to the point, Zoe. So he's still theater acting. RK was look, I want you to keep acting. I want you to do this because this is your worship. You're good at it. But Girish was coming around more and more and more. And this is from Ramakrishna and His Disciples, the book that Christopher Isherwood wrote. Meanwhile, Ramakrishna's influence was steadily gaining its hold upon Girish. One night, Girish drank himself into unconsciousness at the house of a prostitute. In the morning, he hastened to visit Ramakrishna. He was full of remorse, but had not neglected to bring a bottle of wine with him in the carriage. On arriving at Dakshineshwar, he wept repugnantly and embraced Ramakrishna's feet. Then suddenly he felt an urgent need of drink and discovered to his dismay that the carriage had already driven off. But now Ramakrishna smilingly produced not only the bottle, but Girish's shoes and scarf as well. He had privately told a devotee to bring them from the carriage before it left. Girish could not control himself. He drank shamelessly before them all, and having done so was again repentant. Drink to your heart's content, RK told him. It won't be for much longer. Girish said later that was the beginning of his abstention from intoxicating drinks, but the abstention was gradual, and this was certainly not the last time that Girish was drunk in RK's presence. Girish had a writer's skepticism about the authority of the written word. He knew only too well how easy it was for him to compose fine phrases. I don't want advice, he once told RK. I have written cartloads of advice to others. It doesn't help me. This is what I'm getting. Do something to transform my life. Ramakrishna was greatly pleased by this proof of Girish's faith in him. Go into solitude and shut yourself in a cave. Peace is not there. Peace is where faith is. Faith is at the root of all things. Girish asked again if he should give up his work in the theater. RK told him to continue it. He now treated Girish with fatherly affection, as though he was a little child, and often fed him sweets with his own hands. Then, this is the big gun right here. This is what I'm advocating. High end. Then one day, Ramakrishna told Girish that he must remember God at least twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, no matter how much work he had to do. Girish agreed that this sounded simple enough, but then he reflected that his life was so disorganized, so busy, so much at the mercy of impulses and emergencies that he did not even have fixed hours for eating or sleeping. How could he promise to remember God? Honest. He couldn't conscientiously do so. Very well, said R.K. Here it is. Then remember God just before you eat or sleep, no matter what time it is. It gets better. But Girish would not make even such a promise because he was honest. The truth was that any kind of self-discipline was repugnant to him. I love this. In that case, said Ramakrishna, you must give me your power of attorney. This is big. From this moment on, I'll take full responsibility for you. You won't have to do anything at all. Remember, I said this is what I was wishing for everybody. Girish was delighted. That was what he had been wanting all the time. To be rid of responsibility, guilt forever. Rid of responsibility and guilt forever. Because guilt is a block to responsibility, ironically. Guilt is demonic and gives people, it separates you from God, it separates you from yourself. It's down the road. He agreed to Ramakrishna's suggestion and thought to himself, now I shall be free as air. But Girish was quite wrong, as he soon found out. He had made himself Ramakrishna's slave in the best possible way. One day when Girish happened to remark about some unimportant matter, I shall do this, Ramakrishna corrected him, saying, you mustn't talk in that dogmatic way. Say, I shall do this if God wills. Henceforward, Girish tried to surrender his will altogether to Ramakrishna. Anyway, later on he was saying, look at me, he would add, I'm not even free to breathe, meaning that he felt that he could not perform any action of his will without the help of the Lord. A profound story. There's a lot in that. It's to inspire you. It's like the penultimate, and I know everyone's like, it's not the ultimate, Zoe, it's the thing before the ultimate. I'm like, I know, but I like the word penultimate. I think I'll wear both the hats, Wino and the NRA. What do you think? That's what this whole thing is. This whole practice of discipline, offering up your choices, your actions, your behaviors, your beliefs, all of them to God, is a way to remember God. Remember that there's something other than you running the show. It's like, use everything, just like Girish was teaching us with RK, like use everything, whatever it is your trip is, to remember God. And eventually that's all you will remember, and all these things that are distractions and in the way and are mediums between you and God will take care of themselves. And then the idea of giving your power of attorney to God will make sense. But we have to do, the other lesson here, and I'm cutting myself off, is honesty. Self-honesty. Girish was honest. Like, I can't do that, dude. I'm not going to promise something to God himself because that wouldn't bode well. And the irony is it's never the content. It's the honesty, the willing to be honest. And the whole idea is to create freedom so you have direct access and use your donuts to get there. Use your gun to get there. Use your yoga mat to get there. Use your wine to get there. Use your greens to get there. Like whatever you feel compulsive, like you can't live without or you have to do, or not. There's some things that don't have that kind of weight for you. Then don't worry. Like put your bicycle away for a while and walk, or take your car. If you do the bike, take your car. If you do the car, take your bike. It's like, we're trying to be nimble. And as I've used this overused example, and I used this kumbaya I just taught, the banquet, God's banquet, thank you, Auntie Mame, God's banquet is huge. And if we dry hump the scampi, and the chef takes it away, then we're missing out on the banquet, and we're so myopic, we're freaking out on the floor, jonesing for whatever the scampi is. It's like, take breaks, pull back, enjoy the cheese board, or go get some fruit, whatever that is, right? Nimble open and free, right? Soft hand. This isn't this, and it's not this. We're looking for the soft hand. Things come, things go. I've got so much in the air right now. Anywho, that was a bit long. I'm going to go move my house around because I'm very excited. Here's a couple notes. My Kauai retreat on the Sacred Heart, the intro and then the advanced material. I've got a few slots left, I think 3. That's in March. If you're interested, you can go to my website and see the tuition. It's March, I believe, it's that 3rd week of March, the 17th week right there. You can check it out. I've got the virtual class this Saturday, 3 hours. It's also, if you want to be at Aloha, you can come here. It's in the desert, Southern California. It's a 3-hour class on mercy, practicing mercy to cultivate real compassion. I believe the tuition's $100 for 3 hours. And then I have a retreat, a personal retreat that is available at the end of the month if you're interested. Again, you can go to my website, reverendzoeinman.com, and look at the specs there. That just opened. You can come for the 2 days or 1 day or 3 days, up to you. The 27th, the weekend of the 27th. I'm using this because people want to know stuff, and I see that sometimes they miss the emails, so forgive me, I'm blabbing here. I think that's it for this month. And of course, I have Zoom sessions and everything else if you want. I'm pretty booked, but there's some openings too. And if you want to book that, you can book that at getdown@reverendzoe.com, zoeinman.com. Erica, my assistant, will be back to you. Whew. All right. Ready to roll, Dolce Kitty? Very own Tat Sat. May all those suffering at any level of existence be soothed in whatever capacity is appropriate. Go out, rock and roll, another day in paradise. Okay, love you. Bye.